Politicians in Washington, D.C. are introducing a bill that would force landlords nationwide to accept criminals into their units by banning them from using criminal background checks. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and I've covered this topic many times, but usually on the state level. Well, now, guess what? There's congressmen up in DC, and they want to pass this sort of legislation nationwide. And what would the legislation do? It would ban landlords from being able to do criminal background checks on their prospective tenants. Okay, they would take away one of the most powerful tools we have in order to make sure that we put good tenants into our properties. And I'm 100% opposed to it. I think it's an idiotic idea. I don't think it's going to pass, but it tells you right there that this is the sort of thing they're trying to move towards. Okay, they're trying to take our property rights away, take away our ability to make the best judgment call on who should be a tenant in our property, and make us subject to the whims of politicians and bureaucrats when it comes to running our businesses. Now, this soft on crime, this is what it really falls down to. This is the soft on crime mentality. The same type of mentality that says, oh, well, we shouldn't arrest people for small, petty crimes like shoplifting. And then guess what happens? Places like San Francisco get overrun with thieves who steal everything, and the businesses move out. They move out because they can't make any money. Just like we will have to go out of business if we put bad tenants in our properties who have criminal histories and are going to not pay us rent or tear our properties up or cause all sorts of property damage and problems. Okay, so I have a huge issue with this. I hope this doesn't pass. And it's extremely frustrating reading that they want to pass this sort of thing nationwide. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Now, have you ever had problems with tenants that you had in your property who were criminals? Did they steal from you? Did they do property damage? Did they steal from your other tenants? Did they, were there drug issues going on in your property? I'm just curious, because these are issues that really do happen to landlords, and they don't want to even consider the fact that, hey, there's a good reason why landlords don't want to rent to people with criminal histories, because these problems, they tend to follow those people. Okay, they tend to follow those people, and if I have a property, I want to put the best tenant possible in there. So they talk about wanting sympathy for these people who, they've done time for their crimes, and now they just need a place to live. We don't want them to end up homeless, right? Well, here's my issue. If you are so concerned about them having somewhere to live, the government needs to provide housing for them. Okay? For the ones who are unable to find housing, the government needs to provide it, not a private property owner. As I've said many times, we are not a social welfare provider, and we are not a homeless shelter. So do not expect us to act as one. So, whew, man, this topic gets me hot. Anyway, let's get into this article. This article is coming from theappeal.org, and it says, Presley Talib announced bill to limit criminal background checks on renters. Formerly incarcerated people are 10 times more likely to become homeless than people without criminal backgrounds. The Housing First Act would ban credit check companies from including criminal history information on prospective tenants' files if enacted. Yeah, so they want to strip away our ability to look at these backgrounds. And, it just pisses me off. It pisses me off. They always talk about, oh, well, you know what? Most of these offenders, they are nonviolent. Well, I can name so many nonviolent offenders who you don't want in your property. Come on, let's talk about it right now, because, theft is a good example right there. Somebody who's convicted of theft, that's not a violent crime. But do you want a thief in your property? Do you want a thief who could possibly steal from you or steal from the other tenants, if you have a multifamily building? No, you don't. Okay? What about fraud? Okay, do you want somebody who is a fraudster up in your property? Maybe they're going to defraud you. No, I don't. I certainly wouldn't think that most landlords would. Oh, well, this person, he writes bad checks. Well, is the rent check going to be bad? Yeah, see what I mean? What about drugs? Oh, some people, they just fall into addiction and Well, here's the problem, right? Drugs, they lead to other issues, and the type of people who hang around and use drugs, I might not want in my property. There, so you know what? My opinion is it should be up to the landlord's discretion. If a landlord wants to rent to these people or wants to take a chance, that is their right. But what I don't like is when the government wants to step in, say, you have to take this tenant. You cannot look at their background history. You have no choice in the matter. You know what I'll do? I'll just sell all my houses, sell them to owner occupants, and there'll be less rental properties available for everyone at that point, okay? Oh man. Anyway, let's get into this article. U.S. Representatives Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib will introduce federal legislation today that limits landlords' abilities to use criminal background checks when screening potential tenants. Safe, stable, and affordable housing is a fundamental human right, including for the millions of people with a record. Pressley, whose father and husband both served time in prison, said in a prepared statement. It's time we remove the systemic obstacles that have exacerbated the prison to homelessness pipeline, perpetuated the cycle of mass incarceration, and denied housing to people who need it. Our bill does just that and will move us closer to true housing justice in America. My biggest gripe with all of this stuff that, oh, we got to help these ex-cons, these people with criminal histories. I'm like, well, what about everybody else? Okay, maybe we should help everyone else, all the law-abiding people first, before we go and we're making special rules and giving these people who just got out of prison special privileges. Okay, I have no sympathy for them. You will always face consequences for your actions, regardless of if you've served your time or not. Okay, so when you talk about somebody, yeah, I went to prison, etc., right? Well, it's going to take a long time for you to earn the trust back of everyone else. It just takes time. Now, the reason that a lot of people are homeless who get out of prison is because, simply put, they were committing crimes. They never actually, had real jobs, or they don't have a lot of job skills. And now they're once they got out of prison, they're having trouble finding employment. So you know what? In that case, in those kind of scenarios, I can understand having a temporary, government assistance to help them get back on their feet if they want it. Okay, because it's going to be very difficult for someone who is transitioning from, hey, I just did 10 years in prison, to, okay, now I have to pay my own bills, now I have to provide my own food, my own housing, my own everything. It's a big transition. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you're living with your parents and everything is taken care of. Well, in the case of these inmates, the government was their parent taking care of everything, and now they have to go out on their own, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard, especially because a lot of these people, they just don't have a mindset. Okay, and I know what people are saying. Oh yeah, that's not true of everybody, right? And I'm speaking in general terms, right? But I worked in prisons. I worked in two different prisons. Okay, one for the state of Kansas and one for the federal government. So I've met a lot of people who are inmates, and you know what? They're not all bad people. They do deserve a second chance, but they have to want it. They have to work for it. Most landlords, approximately 90%, according to the National Consumer Law Center, use third party companies, sometimes known as credit reporting agencies, to run background checks on current or prospective tenants. Under current law, a landlord may use those reports to deny the person housing, refuse to renew a lease, or place more onerous conditions on the tenant, such as requiring a cosigner or a larger deposit. So yeah, I mean, the current law works just fine, and you know what? They're trying to modify that law to make it easier for them, for them to get housing. Well, you know what? Landlords are going to find a way to still screen those people out, whether it's black market, under the table tenant screening or whatever. They are not going to put their properties at risk, and potentially lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. The bill, called the Housing for Formerly Incarcerated Reentry and Stable Tenancy Housing First Act, amends the Fair Credit Reporting Act by expanding restrictions on what information can be included in background checks on prospective tenants. Under current law, background checks cannot list arrests older than 7 years, but there is no expiration date for convictions. A draft version of the Housing First Act shared with the appeal forbids consumer reporting agencies from including any arrests that did not result in a conviction, as well as convictions of children, people who have completed their sentence, or people on probation or parole. The bill would also ban agencies from including information related to expunged or sealed sentences, non criminal citations, and court fees or other related payments. So, you know, if you read that carefully, right, it says that they don't want to include information about any arrest that did not result in a conviction, right? And that's a huge problem, okay? Because a lot of the times the people who are in and out of the justice system, they will have many charges filed against them where the case will be, dismissed. So it would be nice to know, well, yeah, this guy, he only has one marijuana possession conviction, right? But if you look at the fact that he's been arrested for drug offenses 22 times and all those cases were dismissed or pled down or whatever, then you might say, well, this guy, he isn't just a guy who's just smoking a blunt every once in a while. This guy's a drug addict. Okay. That's just an example. From Detroit to Boston, every human being deserves access to safe, affordable housing, including people who were formerly incarcerated, Tlaib said in a press statement. We must prioritize restorative justice, lead with compassion, and recognize the human dignity of our neighbors as we work to dismantle the cycles of mass incarceration and housing discrimination. Yeah, I don't believe in none of that mass incarceration nonsense, okay? You go down and I want you to look at every single case and tell me that those people didn't commit the crimes that they, I'm not saying that there haven't been a few small rare occasions where people were not, guilty of the crimes that they were convicted of, right? But the grand majority of those people, yes, they committed the crimes and they are serving the time because of it. Okay, you're just using talking points to try to manipulate people's attitudes, and the result is this so soft on crime nonsense that we've been going through lately, where we have district attorneys in place that are pleading down serious charges to non-serious ones, not giving people prison time who need to be locked up, and the whole world is more dangerous because of that. And I absolutely hate it. I don't believe in that soft on crime stuff. Okay. I believe that you commit the crime, you do the time. That's what I believe. I believe that justice is not only you going to prison, but making sure that the rest of society is safe. Okay, making sure that we are safe. Why are we so worried about the way that the criminals are treated when those criminals, they don't care about us? They don't give one darn. They will steal from us. They will rob us. They will commit violent acts against us. And I can't approve of it. Okay. I just can't. So, I'm going to put a link to this article down in the description if you want to read the rest of it. But you already know how I feel. Let me know how you feel in the comments.